enormous development over the past couple of years is the insanely massive growth in social media. And for young people, that's 3 of the big 4. Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, not so much with the LinkedIn. But we all know that. What's more important to realize is that these are no longer simply websites or destinations, but now need to be considered channels of access, almost like a utility. A kid in a focus group said to me a couple months ago, the guy who invented Facebook invented a new way of communication. Now, that's a little contentious maybe, but I think it's an interesting point. Because Facebook, like the rest of our social media, obeys some very youthy rules, and the single biggest one is this. Social media, fundamentally, are media that we do not control, even if we create them. And that's because technology is their language, and social media occurs in technology. This is a quote I often like to repeat from Jaron Lanier, who said, "We already knew that kids learned computer technology more easily than adults. What we're seeing now is that they don't even need to be taught. It's as if children were waiting all these centuries for someone to invent their native language." And remember, that's a conversation that never ends, no matter what else is going on. Social media are the equivalent of the person who is talking on their cell phone during a movie. They simply can have that conversation and want to have it while they are experiencing other media. So the single biggest change after this explosion of social media is simply this. It's shattered the illusion of control. Young people have always pushed against boundaries in every area, not just marketing. But marketers now have to accept that shared control is the new normal, and thinking that we can control our brands is a complete illusion. It comes from not necessarily believing that there are boundaries. It comes also from marketing now full-on living in youth culture. So control has shifted from creators to consumers, and from adults to youth. Not just in content, but even in the way we distribute that content, and in the stories that young people want to tell about their brands. The most successful youth brand of all time, the most successful kids brand of all time in my mind, has actually allowed young people to completely violate their copyright laws whenever they've wanted to. It's looked like this. Kids grow up thinking that they own their brands and that they can draw Mickey and Donald and put them on their fridge or give them to their parents to take to their office, that they can reproduce that content and do with it what they will. Now, teenagers are doing things like making Buffy Twilight mashups and actually referencing at the bottom, this transformative work constitutes fair use under the US Copyright Act, and getting 2 million views on YouTube. We don't control our media anymore. You might be making the greatest TV show of all time, which was Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or a horribly overrated series of movies in the Twilight movies, and a young person will mash those two together and feel that they own it just as much as you do. The same rules applies to our brands. Like Doritos, who are famously using this to some success in allowing their consumers to create commercials for them. So remember, we're not in control of our brands anymore. Our young customers, consumers, and users are. We aren't even in control of the media channels that talk about our brands anymore. More than ever before, young people expect to control the conversation that is modern marketing. And that means they'll speak when they want to, and they'll chastise you for not speaking in their language. The past couple of years, with the development of the like button, and Open Graph, and the hashtag, and the comment and social tools, and everything else, these have been the first real years of customer feedback in a public forum that brands can't ignore. They will join your page on Facebook just to tell you that they don't like your brand, which is what someone did up there. And if you can, I'll just read this if you can't see it. It's a guy who says he's leaving AT&T to move over to Verizon and get a Droid. And he talks about how great this is, and that's on the AT&T page. And underneath, the AT&T spokesperson says, you know Verizon has their own fan page if you want to go talk over there. It used to be if you didn't like a brand like Starbucks, and don't get me wrong, Starbucks, very popular, they just opened one up in my living room, so it's nice for me. But if you didn't like a brand like Starbucks, you would just not shop there. Now if you have fair to middling Photoshop skills, you do this, and you post it everywhere you can. In Australia, a guy who works at Publicis named Ian McDonald actually created a cute Twitter experiment where he convinced Coke and Pepsi to follow each other on Twitter, and he facilitated it himself. He actually asked, can two competitive brands exist in the Twitter sphere together? And hashtag Coke and Pepsi, and they both decided to follow each other. Reluctantly, but they did. So we have to stop treating social media as a place where we migrate our existing older forms of marketing. It's not a place online to show your ads. It's an entirely new form of communication that demands young consumer involvement in the process, or they'll hijack it.